Good morning and welcome to Frank's School. Fire. I'll explain about that in just a moment. This is the 122nd day, first video. There'll be two today, not so long as before. Let me go back to the one when I was talking about water. I forgot to mention that the weirs, that word weir, one of the reasons I knew it was because at Laconia, New Hampshire, which is near where I lived for my teenage years, there was a place called the Weirs. This was at the bottom of Lake Winnipesaukee, and I'd seen the word and I didn't really know what it was. Now I know. There's a whole series of mills, wonderful water-powered mills down the Merrimack River. And but so anyway, I just wanted to mention that someday, if I'm up in New Hampshire again at some point, I'll probably go back and study it a little closer. Prise d'eau, I had it written on the board. That's French. It's Swiss French. Well, no, it's probably regular French too. Trap of water. That's what I used mostly for weir, since I'd forgotten the word. I just said it doesn't really exist in English. Well, it does. Another thing, stilling basin. It didn't come to me as I was filming, but where you have a drop structure and it lands, that's called a stilling basin, and that's what controls erosion. The water gets stilled there, and then it can flow on, and it doesn't carry sediment. Links of children playing at the weir, at Court Weir mostly. I haven't done that yet. I need to remember to do that, and I will. I mean, water is going to be my subject for a number of weeks, probably. All right, now fire. Oh boy, it was ironic, really, that the day that I taught about water and went for a water walk, the big event of that day was not water, it was fire. I was burning brush, and it got out of control, and it burned a field off, which was okay. I mean, that part was okay. It was not really controlled, but it was okay. But then it eventually got into the woods and became a brush fire. Not a big one. But I had permission. You're going to see this in the second video. I'm going to go out and show you. I had permission. There's a place, agency called County Control, where here in Bedford County, and probably most places, if you're going to burn brush, you're allowed to do that. You need to report that you're going to do that. And so I had done so. I called into County Control. Wasn't sure they were going to say okay because the conditions were getting dry. But they, no problem. They said, what's your phone number, what's your address? And I gave it. Now, as I say, but then it got out of control. This was not one of my finest days. And I'm talking about something that I'm not particularly proud of. But I thought, I'm a teacher. I travel to Europe to learn. To Europe to learn, and when I learn, then I want to teach. Well, I learned, and so there's a little bit here I can teach. I feel like I made three clear mistakes in having this happen. One, it was too windy. It wasn't that windy, but there was wind. It was too windy, and I was a little bit surprised about County Control, but I think they're more I don't know. It was too windy. That would have been okay where I had to fire because it was going to be stopped by the road, stopped by the lane, but the wind changed direction. I was aware of the wind, and I said at one point to the firefighters, I said, boy, I'll bet every time there's a brush fire or grass fire, the wind never is consistent. Of course, sometimes it's a mercy. But anyway, it changed direction, and so it ended up going out through the whole field, but not a big field. Controlled by anyway, it was pretty wild there and a little bit scary. But the second mistake was I should have had more help. I had one person with me. I should have had more than that. And we should have been better equipped, myself too. I had a shovel. When I go out, I'll show you the shovel that I had, which is a real important thing to have. But I had the wrong kind of shovel. And the man I was with didn't have anything at all. A bucket, and there was water there. But anyway, so I should have had more better equipped help. And I think that's maybe always the case if you're burning brush, even though there's nothing to do when you're just watching it burn. If it gets out of control, all of a sudden there's lots to do. And then finally, what had happened was there was a field fire, grass fire, and one of the firefighters had said to me, you know, in the old days, the old timers, they used to do that all the time. It was a sort of a standard practice. It still is done. If there's hay that's been raked and is molding in the field, you can burn it off. And as he said, and everybody kind of knew that field is going to look great in a few weeks. Well, I think already by a week or less it'll look great. Anyway, the grass fire was out, we thought, and you know, but I was staying there because there were the brush fire I'd started. I wanted to make sure that was all burnt up, and so I was staying there and I was looking around and stuff. But then I noticed that there had been a hot spot along the creek, and it jumped the creek. And it wasn't where I was, you know, and I was doing something else, and I looked up, and here I saw that hot spot had gone across and gotten into the dry leaves. Then I knew I was in trouble, and I rushed over as quick as I could with my shovel, but I couldn't put it out. Well, the mistake I made in retrospect was I should have ripped my shirt off, ripped the buttons right off, soaked it in the creek on my way through, and I could have used that like a whip. I've done that before with grass fires, and it is very effective. It's more effective even than the guys with the tanks squirting water. But I was alone by this time. The man who was helping me, it had all been too wild, and he'd left. And it looked like it was over. And so I was by myself, and I just didn't, I thought the wrong way. And then you're going to see all this in a minute. When it went up the bank, it then reached a place where my neighbor had piled about 6 or more piles of brush. And when it got into those piles of brush, they'd been dry for several years. I knew the fire company was going to come one way or the other. The fire company was going to come. So I managed to get my attention. I didn't have a cell phone. I guess that would be another mistake here. I didn't have a cell phone. Should have. Usually if there's more than one person there, somebody's got a cell phone. But and I said, call the fire company. It's time. And they came. And oh, and another thing that was such a mercy is the neighbor had made the hay in that field. When it went up the bank, the hay had been made so it was cut short. So the fire stopped of its own there. Well, you're going to see all this in a little bit. And as I say, this was not one of my proudest moments. But it gave me something to teach with. So you're going to see a second video today if you choose to, and you're just going to see the aftermath. I've done most of the explaining now. Bye for now.